I'm very happy to be part of this. By the way, I mean, the audience already had an overdose of gloom, and we all have to say the same things anyway. But I want to mention something that may not be kosher for this forum. I think there are people whose shadows or whose specter are above us. One of them is now legitimized by Steve Bannon, Lenin. The others are Marx and Gramsci, maybe Eric Hobsbawm, and I'll allude to them in what I'm going to say. And I think they've already been kind of alluded to. Telegraphically, we're witnessing the unraveling of the second half of the Cold War order, meaning the first half was, of course, the Soviet system that collapsed, and the unipolar moment, which was meant to keep the other part alive, is now unraveling. That unipolar moment was evidently a blip, and we're in a period where the redistribution of economic power and the demographic weight reshuffles the cards for the redistribution of political and strategic power, and previous speakers alluded to that already. Secondly, and unexpectedly, but perhaps not surprisingly, given the dialectics of global expansion of capitalism, latecomers took advantage of the globalization of the economy as they integrated into world markets. In the aggregate as well as in particulars, the successful integrators were the beneficiaries of free trade, free flow of capital, and easy access to both capital and markets. I think some people must be either turning in their graves or laughing from the skies that it is left to the Secretary General of the Chinese Communist Party and the President of the People's Republic of China to actually be the champion of free trade, free capital movements, and global capitalism. Okay. In turn, again, it's been said, the working and middle classes of developed countries were net losers of this type of globalization, as is manifested in mostly stagnant incomes or limited improvement in incomes observed over the past 30 to 35 years. 3, as inequality between developed and underdeveloped parts of the world receded, inequality within countries, and Mr. Dukas just said it, has risen. This is the broad background to the eruption of populist movements in developed countries, particularly in the wake of the financial crisis of 2008. Fourthly, the United States, the creator and the custodian of the liberal economic and political order, under the sway of a populist president, challenges established norms and rules and suggests that this president's country will not bear all the burdens of the responsibility it accepted over 7 years ago. So compare John F. Kennedy's inaugural speech with that of Donald Trump, and much more importantly, compare it with what the President of the United States said in his State of the Union speech. He said, "My job is not to represent the world, my job is to represent the United States of America." But I should also submit to you that what will compound this threat of either isolationism or severe unilateralism Ian Lesser spoke about is the US Congress, which in my view arguably is the most dangerous legislature in the world, especially under extremist Republicans, both in political and economic policy terms that they have been propagating in the course of the last 25 years. 5, the disruption this new American posture may cause to world order is not yet fully measurable. I think Mrs. Livni spoke about that. The established security system and its actors in the United States may yet contain the tide of retrenchment or isolationism, but the economic nationalism propagated by the new administration and articulated in the quasi-State of the Union message to Congress will severely alter the workings of the international economy, which means this will arguably cause political tensions to rise. F, at a time when the United States intends to withdraw from its hegemonic role, the West, as it was defined after the Second World War, is also losing its firmness. Mr. Dukas was very optimistic about Europe. Maybe he's right, maybe he's not. But the thing is, the European Union was a product of the Cold War. And if there is any fault that to be talked about is, after the end of the Cold War, it presumed that the Cold War logic could still work, and it didn't. And I hope that it is not too late to actually figure out that we are living in a post-Cold War period. There is no emerging power or group of powers that has either the capacity or so far the will to shape an alternative to the liberal world order that the West put forth and the United States guaranteed. This is the Gramsci part. So as the old order recedes, the new order is not yet ready to take over. The void created by this equilibrium is full of risks, and of course this is, I suppose, what Margaret Macmillan was also alluding to. The last 2 points. The mass awakening of the ex-colonial world and the inability to deal with the legacy of colonialism in previously colonial powers, in my judgment, is one of the reasons why politically we really cannot get to terms with this current environment. And the rise of populist leaders in important countries such as India, I think it's a very dangerous country, India, or will be, suggests that the great powers will not be able to determine the course of events for long. This would put existing multilateral institutions under pressure to reform or transform. One other question must be asked as well, and that is, again, relating to Mrs. Livni's opening sentences. What will the corporations do? What will their choice be politically? Are they going to go Trumpist or anti-Trumpist? Just to put it symbolically. In the aftermath of the Second World War, the corporations accepted the leadership and accepted to be submitting to political authority. They accepted what Hobsbawm called the golden years, that is, redistribution of income, taxing the rich, and giving the middle classes a workable, a good income. What will their choice be? I really do not know, but I think it is critical, because if the corporations decide that they can actually ride this authoritarian wave, then I guess we will not have much of a choice to actually continue in a democratic way. The new round of struggle, therefore, between politics and markets, or between Keynesianism and neoliberalism, is up. Finally, the rise of economic nationalism, aggressive populism, electoral authoritarianism, the failure of states, the ascent of non-state actors, the disarray in parts of the Islamic world, transnational terrorism, and the pressures of climate change help instrumentalize foreign policy for domestic political purposes, and that is a risk that will make the world more prone to accidental conflicts in the absence of agreed upon rules, norms, and legitimate leadership. And that is something that I guess collectively the world states will have to deal with. Whether or not they'll have either the ability or the intelligence or the wisdom to do that, I don't know. Thank you.